Lego Batman is a game about a billionaire going round beating up the mentally ill. But what if we took one of those things away? That's right, today we are going to attempt to beat Lego Batman without collecting a single stud. But before we get into that, why don't you subscribe? I'm trying to reach 50,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and every subscriber helps. But first, what constitutes as collecting a stud? Well, at the end of every level, my stud count must remain at 0. I will of course try to avoid picking up any studs as much as possible, and if I do have to pick up a stud, I will throw Batman off the nearest bridge. We will also be completing this game in story mode, just because I felt like it. Lego Batman the video game starts off where all Batman media starts, in the city of Liverpool, and it is here on the very first level where we encounter our first challenge of this run. Playing on a mouse and keyboard. I want to talk to whatever masochistic fuck made these controls. What the hell is this? You to jump is just a disgrace, and whoever's responsible for this needs to be put on the sex offenders register. For my own sanity, I rebinded all my own keys just to make life easier. Initially when I started this challenge, it was a total no stud run at all, but then I ran into another problem. I immediately picked up a stud. Knowing it wouldn't be possible to beat this game studless, I swallowed my pride and changed the rules to what they are now, and I soldiered on, making my way through the first level, avoiding studs wherever possible and killing myself where not. However, I did manage to get jump scared by a blue stud. Oh! And then I learnt about this game's suit system. In order to progress through some of the areas of Lego Batman, you have to equip Batman's special birthday suits, and the one I had to use for this level had a special ability, destroying my eardrums whenever I used it. Oh, fuck me, that hurt my ears, Jesus! And then I had to go ahead and use Robert's special suit to control this little car, where I encountered my next problem. See this stud here? Well, it's completely impossible to avoid, so I was going to have to tank a death anyway. But then, the game gave me another issue. The car would not move. It was fully stuck, meaning I could not complete this level no matter how hard I tried. Fortunately, I made a major discovery. Thanks to my immense computer knowledge, I turned off VSync in the settings, and the car respected my epic gamer cool decision enough to move forward before encountering the man from Liverpool. Now, the boss fights are the most vital part of this challenge, since if I pick up any studs before landing the final hit, I would need to Alt F4 out of the game and replay the whole stage again. Thankfully, with the help of Robert, we managed to beat the everlasting fuck out of this scouser and beat the level with an overall death count of 22. The reason it was so high was because I kept throwing myself off the nearest bridge every single time I picked up a stud, so you could pretty much replace the death count with the stud count and it would basically be the same thing. Continuing on, we meet our next problem of the run, the Batcave. The Batcave is the one place where Batman can truly be himself, so when he picks up a stud, he wires it directly to his bank account through his anal cavity, meaning when he dies, the studs don't follow, leaving me with this permanent blemish on my total stud count. Thankfully, I reloaded my save and the stud count returned to 0, so we move on to level 2. I just need to remember to be extra careful every time I enter the Batcave. On level 2, we encounter our next antagonist, Mr. Freeze, and this guy always aims to freeze because he's chill like Bill. This level was pretty uneventful with us going through the motions and pretty much doing the same song and dance as we did before, dodging as many studs as possible, and when we couldn't, we threw ourselves off the nearest ledge. But on this level, I came up with a new tactic. The Batarang would be my new best friend for this run, since I can commit multiple counts of property damage from afar without picking up any money. With this newfound technique, Batman can continue to convince people he's not Bruce Wayne by leaving this pile of money for the people who really need it. The most notable thing about level 2 was Robert being forced to collect this blue stud, giving us another death, before we go and face the chillest man of them all and end the level with a total stud count of 0 and a death count of 42. And before you ask, no, I don't want to talk about it. Also, I just wanted to mention the Riddler is voiced by Doodlebob. I just wanted you all to know, since I can't unhear it now. Since level 2 was relatively short and painless, it only makes sense for it to be followed with the hardest level so far, level 3. The reason why level 3 was so tough was Batman decided to go grab a bottle of whiskey to mourn the death of his parents and then hop in the Batmobile, which controls worse than my nan's mobility scooter after 2 puffs of a meth pipe. On this level, the studs flowed like water into Mr. Wayne's bank account, but he started to feel something as his money was pouring in. Why do I deserve this money? What separates me from everybody else? and upon realising this, Batman pledged himself to communism and blew himself up, leaving all of his studs and worldly possessions behind. Unfortunately, Batman's newfound communist agenda did not change the fact that these vehicle controls are in fact worse than my shits after a curry, meaning I had to let Batman take more physical punishment than I would like to admit. After around 30 minutes on this level, we deliver all of the Riddler's gooning goons to the police and fight the Two-Face Goonmobile. This boss takes place in a relatively small arena, so I decided to make the executive decision to destroy everything in sight, before waiting 10 minutes so the goons could viciously murder Batman enough times that he becomes poor again. With this relatively unorthodox strategy, we managed to beat Two-Face's goons and complete this level with around 60 or so deaths. I would also like to mention, this whole challenge is being streamed over at twitch.tv/Whoie, so why don't you come on by to help me indoctrinate people into socialism. We continue on to level 4, where my assistant Robert, also known as YouTube commenter Buttered Crumpets 8434, starts breaking it down sexual style. If you want your spirit to possess Robert in the next episode, comment "Robert, Robert, I love thee, take my kidney and turn them to beans" in the comments below. Level 4 was another pretty uneventful level, where Batman uses his new sonic suit to assault as many minimum wage workers as possible, and Robert uses his sucky suit to suck off all the dirt on the ground. This whole level is pretty by the numbers. We just picked up some studs and threw ourselves off a cliff before repeating 50 times and facing off against the bosses of this level, Audrey 3 and your mum, after a couple of pints of Stella. Now, Batman is not only a generous man who leaves all of his money for those who needs it, but he is also a gentleman who would never raise his hand to a woman. Robert, however, is a sick fuck degenerate who is just looking for any excuse, and he finished this level on our behalf with a total stud count of 0 and a death count of 55. Now, you may be asking, why is my death count so high when I'm going out of my way to avoid every single stud I can? Well, my young viewer, it's because sometimes when Batman dies, Bruce Wayne fights back for control in hopes to get some of his studs back. He then teleports this stud back into Batman's bank account, but thanks to Batman's indomitable will, he usually manages to get the number back to 0. We then continue on to the final level of this world, level 5, which is already an awesome level since it refers to the hit Nick Cage film Face Off. Unfortunately, this awesomeness doesn't last for long, since partway through the level we were hit with another bug. When we're supposed to take this lift up to the bank, it just refuses to work. I genuinely don't know how this happened, but I'm going to assume it was all Robert's fault, so we had to restart the level. After many more grueling accidental stud collections and deaths, we made it to the top of the bank, where we had a scrap with Two-Face, and we keep picking up the same stud upon death. Seriously, this is exactly what I was referring to when I said Bruce Wayne was fighting back for control. This one stud just would not leave my bank account. I was killing Batman off for about 10 minutes straight until finally it left our bank account. We then moved forward into the Doodle Bob boss fight, where I encountered my next problem. I accidentally picked up another stud here, and in the second part of this fight, it turns out the Riddler has some stormtrooper ass aim and completely failed to hit a stationary target. After 2 whole minutes of standing still, the Riddler finally managed to off Batman, but for that poor performance, Batman was going to go beat this mentally ill man into a pulp. And once it was all said and done, we beat level 5 with 0 studs total and 70 deaths, giving us a current death total of 249. In the end, we finally managed to complete the first of 3 worlds, with Batman echoing my own feelings towards Robert. Fuck you, Robert. We continue our LEGO Batman journey in the Batcave, where we encounter our first challenge, getting into the Batboat without collecting a stud. The reason this was an issue was due to this little line of studs right in front of the boat, which I had to carefully jump over. After a couple of quits and reloads, I did manage to jump over the studs, but then the boat decided it was going to force a stud upon me anyway. I tried many ways of getting rid of the stud. I tried reloading and entering the boat from different angles. I tried killing myself countlessly. I even tried giving it to charity, but nothing would work. This stud was now a permanent blemish on my perfect track record with no way of avoiding it. Does that mean this is a challenge failed already? Well, kind of, depending or not if you count the Batcave as a level. However, there is one way we can get this stud count down to 0. We have to do some maths. We have to get our total stud count to a nice round total in the thousands and spend it all at once. But to do this, we have to go about and pick up some more studs. Don't look at me, I didn't make the rules. As soon as we hit a nice round number that matches the cost of internet porn, we go ahead and buy gooning before going back down to the Batboat and commencing on level 6, where we have to fight Catwoman. Now, this level was pretty cool to be fair, since there were bottomless pits everywhere, leading to less deaths since Bruce Wayne couldn't grab the money from the abyss as easily as he could from a pit of radioactive gunk. We pretty much sped through this whole level, avoiding studs where possible and throwing ourselves off the roofs where not. This level then ends with our friend Robert revealing himself once again to be a Reform UK supporter and beating the shit out of Catwoman. Our total deaths on this level ended up at 30, and our total stud count sat at a nice round 0, if you don't count our antics in the Batcave. We continue on to level 7, where we discover Catwoman is actually a furry, before beginning the level for real. This level makes us suffer the most, for this is the penguin sub level. While a penguin sub sounds like another delicious British delicacy, this level is actually a bitch, since for one I have to play with the mouse and keyboard controls, and the boat's turning circle is bigger than the catheter that's up my ass. Having to throw these bombs at silver Lego pieces is probably one of the hardest things I've ever had to do in my life, up there with trying to beat PVZ2 with only beans and your dad. The main reason this level was as hard as it was due to the boss at the end, since in order to damage this fucker, you had to drag more of these stupid fucking bombs, and it was genuinely harder to hit the boss than it was to not get studs. But upon actually beating the boss, the game also decides to give me one final punishment and directly transfers these studs into my bank account. I redid this level so many fucking times, but there was just no avoiding these studs because it was right at the end of the level. So I was going to have to accept my fate and accept that these studs were just unavoidable. In the end, I finished this level with a final death count of 62 and a stud collection of 1. As a punishment for this stud collection, Robert gets decapitated and we have to run back to the Batcave, get our money up slightly to another nice round number, and go and purchase some more internet porn before continuing on to the next level. If you didn't count before as a failure, there's a good chance you've counted this as a failure, but we're going to keep going anyway just for the hell of it. Continuing on to level 8, we have to beat the inventor of crocs. This level was pretty lengthy for a Lego Batman level, but it's nothing we haven't seen before. At least there was plenty of ways for Batman to pledge himself to communism further by jumping into toxic goop. The only other thing to note in this level was, I swear to God, there was a goon giving backshots in the sewer. That and Killer Croc drank his own urine on the streets. Kids games used to be able to get away with some wild things in 2008, it's no wonder I'm so fucked up. In the end, Robert, also known as RoboHobo07, did a celebratory dance, and we beat Killer Croc with a death count of 43 and a stud count of 0. If you want to possess Robert's soul in the next video, be sure to comment, Robert, hear my plea, would you please suck on my toe cheese, down in the comments below. We then continue straight onto level 9, where we have to face off against Herpes Man, also known as Manbat, who is also known as Man. This bat looks cool. At this point, Batman has decided he's had enough of throwing himself off bridges for communism, and he pledges himself to fascism, before realising that fascism is fucking stupid, and he changes his pledge to farming by riding a tractor to Manbat before going back to communism and letting Manbat take all of his studs while Robert watched. In the end, we beat level 9 with 50 deaths and 0 studs collected. We can now finally continue on to level 15, where we have to beat up a small man, and we can see penguins with a gun, penguins with a gun. Thankfully, the cliff on this level was an absolute lifesaver, saving me a bunch of time, having to only die once to get rid of most of my studs. Nothing all that important happened here, it was the same as usual, but now we could finally fight the small man, and I can exact my revenge for what his penguin sub did to me. In the end, we managed to beat this level with 32 deaths and 0 studs collected. Now, usually, this would be where I would end the video, but not today. Uncle Whoie's gonna treat you by going on to the next world. Fortunately, getting into the Batjet doesn't require us to pick up a stud like the stupid fucking Batboat did. So we can continue straight away to level 11, where Robert wants to reenact Hiroshima. As we went through this level, we encountered one gooning goon who wanted to fuck with me by standing in a pile of studs to humiliate me in front of my live Twitch audience. We then run into the Mad Hatter, who gives Robert head control, meaning we once again had to save his pathetic ass before before ending the level. In the end, we beat level 11 with 60 deaths and 0 studs collected. Level 12 was then followed by the next number of the alphabet, and I for one am so happy it's not a vehicle level. The vehicle controls in this game are just so dog shit. I'd be happy if I never had to drive one again, unless I'm wasted. Level 12 was a pretty uneventful level. In fact, it was so uneventful, I went to make some lunch.
Welcome to Roll for Sandwich, except I decide the sandwich. Bread, tomato, 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 cheese, basil. Perfect.
And by the time I got back, Robert was being a raving misogynist and beat the fuck out of Harley Quinn, finishing the level for us with 33 deaths and somehow 0 studs collected. Well done, Robert. You redeemed yourself ever so slightly. Unfortunately, I might have spoken too soon about the vehicles because on level 13, we have to deal with Professor Kyle Crane on a vehicle level. Fortunately, it's probably the best vehicle level yet since it's directly ripped off from LEGO Star Wars. Same gimmicks, same controls, same everything. The only thing that can beat this level is Garfield Kart. Unfortunately, this level fell apart as soon as you had to play Robert to beat it. I have a theory, guys, now just bear with me. I think Robert did 9/11. Fortunately, this level was pretty easy. I had a couple of ways to insta-kill myself and the studs instantly disappeared from my bank account upon death, so I managed to finish this level with only 20 deaths and 0 studs collected. The next level was the number that came after 13, and we had to deal with this moth wanker. This was probably one of the most uninteresting levels in this whole series. It's very standard. In the end, we managed to beat level 14 with 0 studs and a whopping 55 deaths. Now we can finally end the hero storyline of Sonic Heroes by going into the final level to fight the Jonkler. This level starts just like the end of any good story, with an execution by firing squad and a ballerina who won't stop flipping on the balcony. So naturally, Batman and Robert chase down the ballerina, throwing ourselves off the balcony as many times as necessary before committing further domestic terrorism and being shaken off by a clown just like my 7th birthday party. At this point, I had already been recording for 6 hours straight, so I wanted this level done as fast and as painlessly as possible. So I went round the boss arena, collecting every last stud before sending them straight to the abyss, before taking revenge on the Jonkler and finally ending the hero's story. This level gave me 70 deaths, but we somehow managed to beat it with 0 studs total, bringing our total death count to 704 for the hero story, and our total stud count ended at 1. The story ends with Batman and Robert standing proudly over Gotham, fully ready to commit themselves to communism, but somehow we're only halfway through this game. We still have to deal with the villain story. We continue LEGO Batman by confirming our load into Batman and playing as the Riddler. Unfortunately, as we attempt to enter the first level, we are met with unforeseen circumstances. Another stud is forced upon us, meaning we have to go and purchase some penguin goon before entering level 1 of the villain story. And before you ask, no, it's not bestiality. After 20 minutes, we finally get into the first level where we replay some of our earlier levels from the villain's perspective, but without the cool boss fights. On this level, we join the Scouser and the Riddler in stealing the magic catwoman key from the bank. This level didn't have any cliffs or ledges to throw myself off, so I had to rely purely on police brutality to off me enough times to lose all my studs. Police brutality may be an issue in real life, but right here, the police aren't being brutal enough. After waiting 10 minutes for the police to finally take all of our laundered studs, we rush through the rest of the level and take the key, and the Scouser, of course, finds more to steal. We finish this level with 28 deaths and 0 studs collected before moving on to level 2. On level 2, we finally get to play as Chill Bill from the hit game LSD Dream Emulator, and it was here where I discovered that the chicken crossing the road joke was never actually a joke about a chicken crossing the road. It was about the chicken dying, which I genuinely never understood until now. I always thought it was just a random lame joke about a chicken playing Crossy Road, but now I know the poor chicken gets struck down. We need justice for Cock. In the end, we beat Chill Bill's level by chilling with Bill and with a total of 42 deaths and 0 studs collected. Continuing on to level 3, we join Poison Ivan and the Riddler in beating up some minimum wage workers to a pulp, and it was here they realised maybe they're not so different from the billionaire Bruce Wayne. They mistreat their minimum wage workers, they also avoid all taxes, just like Mr. Wayne, and so the villains decide to pledge themselves to fascism, to be more like their hero, Bruce Wayne. As we continue through the level, the Riddler gets tear gassed just like any fascist should, and then pledges himself to a different ideology after realising that fascism is fucking stupid. Instead, the Riddler, and all villains for that matter, have now pledged themselves to a diet of tea and crumpets. Unfortunately, the police couldn't give a rat's ass about these reformed criminals, and they continued to commit police brutality, especially this one cop over here beating on Poison Ivan. This cop just seems to hate women more than Andrew Tate. In the end, I finally managed to beat this level with 64 deaths and 0 studs collected, and apparently I am now the #1 rubber ducky. Yeah, I don't know either. Going into level 4, it was a pretty standard LEGO Batman level, but this time you get to play as Mr. Cardent, and we were talking about Freddy Fazbear live on stream. There's nothing else to note in level 4 really. We managed to finish the level with 55 deaths and 0 studs collected, before moving on to level 5 where the police commit domestic terrorism and blame it all on Mr. Cardent. There was a bunch of unavoidable studs on this level, so I had to run Mr. Cardent into lasers around 50 times before stealing all the gold and finishing level 5 with a total of 97 deaths and 0 studs collected. And according to chat, I am still the #1 rubber ducky. Continuing on to world 2 of the villain story, the first problem arises before we even enter a level. The Penguin sub once again forces us to pick up studs whenever we enter it. This means I had to once again go and buy a private jet and a scientist so I can even out those carbon emissions. Now that we have solved global warming, we enter level 6 and I instantly become traumatized since I realise we have to play as both the bane of my existence and the penguin. Now, I'm not even a kangaroo, but I hate this fucking penguin. I hate him so much, I'm pretty sure I popped a blood vessel live on stream. The fucking penguin. This was yet another standard LEGO Batman level with a whole bunch of deaths, but this level actually did give me a close call towards the end, since it literally ends instantly. If I had a single stud in my pocket, this level would not have given me a single chance of getting rid of them. And if that was to happen, well, I'll just let Bane reenact my anger towards the penguin here. Luckily, I did manage to finish this level with 0 studs collected and 44 deaths. Thank fuck for that. Moving on to level 7, we have Catwoman joining us on this pretty cool level. These roofs are once again a lifesaver, since they are actually a life ender and I can end my life whenever I pick up a stud by throwing myself off them. This was a pretty interesting level actually, since halfway through it we got to fight a police in their policeman helicopter. And we do this by standing still and having Catwoman call the police naughty naughty boys with her whip. There is literally no way this level could get any cooler. I mean, maybe it would make it cooler if we got to ride a dinosaur. Oh my god. We managed to finish this level with 56 deaths and 0 wait, what's this? My perfect stud count tarnished? It's here where I learned the sad, cold, hard, pena-inducing truth about the penguin's penguin. At the end of that level, studs were magically sucked into Mr. Shorty's ass crack, meaning I had to go back through the entire level to prove it's doable without collecting studs. I mean, I did replay it in free mode, but can you blame me? The less time spent with this human cum stain, the better. In the end, I did manage to beat this level without collecting any studs on my second attempt. We then continue on to level 8, where I have to once again deal with the penguin sub. At this point, I fully had enough of the penguin sub, and apparently so did my PC, since my recording software killed itself and I had to restart the entire fucking level to get this footage. And that's not even the worst part. At the end of this level, we had another boat boss fight where it forces studs into my bank account upon defeating it. It was unfortunately another unavoidable, unchanging fact of life, such as death, taxes, and the police boat giving you studs in Villain Story level 8 in LEGO Batman the video game. In the end, we finished this level with 74 deaths and 1 stud collected. Level 9 is what followed, and it was an interesting level because on stream we were all talking about things we liked, such as scones. First of all, it's scones, not scones, you posh twat, and personally, I'm partial to a fruit scone, since I'm not the biggest fan of raisins, but cheese scones can actually be pretty delectable. Actually, I know somebody who can make a pretty good cheese scone. It's all in the cheese, apparently. Other things chat liked consisted of the colour pink, but I gotta say, I'm more of a purple guy myself. In the end, we beat level 9 with 67 deaths and 0 studs collected, and as a reward, Killer Croc gave us sloppy toppy. In level 10, we discover we are being chased by Batman and YouTube commenter Cheap Chuckle Indistinguishable Last Part running towards us at high speed, which I suppose it means now is the time to explain why. As you all may know, Oswald Clobblecock, also known as the Penguin, has some serious allegations against him, but Oswald is insistent that they are at least 16. If you want to be featured in the next Whoie video, be sure to comment "Gluck Gluck Gluck, Hor Hor Hor, Purple Guy's my dad" down in the comments below. Other notable sections of this level involves me eating Wotsits.
They're good watches.
And Catwoman being perved on. So that's why they're called goons. We also had to employ a new tactic.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to beat myself off.
Unfortunately, this new tactic comes with a new challenge. Controlling 2 players on the same keyboard, moving around with the arrow keys and attacking with the number pad is somehow worse than having you as the jump button. Fortunately, with our new tactic, we did manage to get rid of all of our studs and finish the level with 81 deaths and 0 studs collected. Now we can finally move on to the final world, which fortunately we don't need to collect studs to enter like the last 2 worlds, so we can head straight into level 11 where we play as the Jonkler and Hearty Quinton on a by the numbers level, although the game did constantly remind me about Jonkler's special handshake, which I am very sure is the reason he was arrested in the first place. Then we go to fight Gorgonzola and win. That's all there is to it. In the end, we beat level 11 with 23 deaths and 0 studs collected. On level 12, we are greeted with a text scroll referring to somebody as a caped goon, which I don't know who they were talking about, but that sounds like an ideal Friday night. Unfortunately, this level didn't consist of caped gooning, but instead flying planes, which is boring as fuck. So to entertain myself, I collected every single stud in this level, getting the true villain ranking, and then proceeded to lose every single one while keeping my rank and finishing the level with 57 deaths and 0 studs collected. That's right chat, I'm still the #1 rubber ducky of all time. We continue on to level 13, where we can play as our main man Scarecrow, who walks like he's not allowed within 1,000 feet of a primary school. This was another pretty standard Lego Batman level with nothing out of the ordinary going on, so we finished the level with 27 deaths and 0 studs collected. Unfortunately, Scarecrow got taken back into police custody after being 950 feet away from the Gotham primary school. Unfortunately, with Scarecrow now arrested, we had to deal with this moth wanker who caused us a great deal of strife on this level. I swear to God, he is an undercover fed. How else could you explain this many policemen on screen at once? Regardless, the Jonker still manages to build the Z-Mech from the hit game Conker's Bad Fur Day before fighting Gorgonzola once more. Unfortunately, since this level's boss consists of destruction, it forces studs into our wallet without a single opportunity to piss them away. This means I once again had to swallow my pride and finish this level with 46 deaths and a total of 1 stud collected. This means I had to go back to Arkham Asylum and buy Jonkler a Batcape on the internet so he could also become a caped gooner. With our last penny spent, we can continue on to the last level of Lego Batman, where I, a grown-ass man, got stuck on this kids game for 20 minutes straight. The only way I managed to finish this level was by spamming F on random objects until I hit the right one. So just remember gamers, if you ever doubt your intelligence, just remember this 22-year-old bloke got stuck for 20 fucking minutes on a goddamn kids game.
Hey guys, editing Whoie here, and it just occurred to me, there was this white circle in front of this device that I could have interacted with, but how the fuck am I meant to see it? It's so goddamn bright in this level. What the fuck? I feel even stupider now.
Anyway, we went straight to the top of the clock tower with the Jonkler and Quinton and beat this level with a total of 0 studs and 29 deaths. And with that, it's all over. We have finally finished Lego Batman the video game with a total stud collection of 3 and a final death count of 1,494 throughout the entire series. Now with that, the challenge is finally complete. It's finally time for me to tackle some of my biggest challenges yet, such as beating Plants vs Zombies with OnlyFans and beating Baldur's Gate 3 as a fascist, I mean Donald Trump. So I hope to see you all there, and if I don't, just remember guys, I'm in your walls.